When my stepmother stood in our living room, arms crossed and eyes cold, and told me I had 30 days to get out of the house I grew up in, something inside me snapped. What she didn't know was that in less than 24 hours, I'd flip the script, and she'd be the one packing her bags. This isn't just a story about revenge, it's about justice, and how far someone will go when everything they love is on the line. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or treated like you don't matter, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story is for you. Today, I'll take you through one of the most satisfying family revenge stories you'll ever hear, and trust me, you'll be cheering by the end. I'll never forget the day my stepmother, Vanessa, looked me dead in the eyes and told me I had 30 days to leave the only home I had ever known. It wasn't just a house. It was the creaky wooden steps that I used to race up as a kid, the backyard where my dad taught me how to throw a baseball, and later, how to grill burgers just the way he liked them, a little charred, but always juicy. The faint smell of his cologne still clung to the hallway near his bedroom, like he had just walked through it yesterday. But he hadn't. My father was gone. He passed away only 3 weeks earlier. And while I was still drowning in grief, barely getting out of bed some mornings, barely eating, Vanessa had already moved on to the next chapter of her life. At least, that's what it looked like. I should have seen it coming. Even at the funeral, when I was standing by his casket with swollen red eyes, Vanessa was off in the corner, whispering with people I didn't recognize. She looked polished. Perfect. Like she was already playing the role of a wealthy widow, not a grieving wife. Still, I never imagined she would kick me out. Not after everything. When she delivered the news, it was almost casual, like she was discussing the weather. She stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, her freshly manicured nails tapping against her arm. "You'll need to make arrangements," she said flatly. 30 days should be plenty of time to get yourself together. Get myself together. Those words sliced right through me. I remember gripping the edge of the counter just to keep my hands from shaking. Vanessa, this is my home. Dad wanted me here. He told me this place would always be mine. She gave me this little smirk. The kind of smile someone gives when they know they've already won. Your father said a lot of things. But what matters is what's legal. And legally, I'm in charge now. My chest tightened. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. My father hadn't even been in the ground a month, and she was already talking about legalities. The silence between us stretched, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to scream, to demand how she could be so cold, but my voice betrayed me. All I managed was a whisper. "You can't be serious." Her eyes flicked over me like I was nothing more than an obstacle. 30 days. That's generous. Don't test me. And with that, she turned her back and walked out of the kitchen. Like the conversation was over. Like I was already gone. I just stood there, staring at the spot where she had been, my heart pounding so loudly it felt like it echoed in the empty house. That night, I barely slept. Every corner of the house seemed to scream with memories. The photo of me and Dad fishing, still hanging in the hallway. The worn recliner where he'd fall asleep watching late-night TV. Even the dent in the wall by the stairs from when I was 10 and crashed my bike inside the house because I thought it would be fun. It wasn't just a house. It was Dad. It was us. And Vanessa was about to erase it all. And yet, beneath all that grief, something else began to stir. A low, burning anger. I didn't know how yet. I didn't know what it would take. But I made myself a promise right there, in the darkness of my childhood bedroom. If she thought she could kick me out of this home, she was in for the shock of her life. The days after Vanessa's ultimatum felt like living inside a slow-motion nightmare. She didn't grieve the way I did. While I stumbled through mornings, still expecting to hear Dad's laugh echo from the living room, she was busy. Busy redecorating. Busy making phone calls behind closed doors. Busy acting like the house was already hers alone. The shift in her behavior was subtle at first. She started moving things. Dad's favorite recliner vanished from the living room, replaced with some sleek leather chair that looked like it belonged in a corporate office. The family photos that once lined the hallway? Gone. When I asked where they were, she tilted her head and said, "They didn't fit the aesthetic I'm going for." Aesthetic. Like our memories were nothing more than mismatched furniture. But it wasn't just the physical changes. It was her tone, too. She'd stopped pretending to be the supportive stepmom she had half-heartedly played when Dad was alive. Instead, her words were sharp, dismissive. If I lingered too long in the kitchen, she'd sigh and mutter, "Some of us have work to do." If I brought up Dad, she'd change the subject or roll her eyes. It became painfully clear. She didn't just want me out of the house. She wanted me erased. One evening, I heard her on the phone in the study. Her voice was low, conspiratorial, but I caught enough to make my stomach twist. Yes, as soon as the sale goes through. No, he won't be a problem. 30 days, tops. Then we can finally move forward. Sale. Move forward. My blood ran cold. I pressed myself against the wall, straining to hear more. The realtor said it'll move fast. Prime neighborhood, big payout. Oh, and don't worry, I'll have more than enough for us to start fresh. I didn't hear the rest, because my pulse was thundering too loudly in my ears. She wasn't just kicking me out. She was planning to sell my childhood home. The house my dad worked 2 jobs to buy. The place where every memory of him lived. And worst of all, she was doing it to run off with someone else. I stumbled back to my room, my hands trembling. The grief that had been smothering me shifted into something sharper, hotter. For the first time since Dad's funeral, I wasn't drowning, I was burning. She thought I was powerless. Just some grieving kid she could push aside while she cashed in on the life my father built. But that night, lying awake with my fists clenched, I realized something important. If Vanessa was bold enough to play dirty, then I'd have to be smarter, faster, relentless. And for the first time since Dad's death, I knew exactly what I had to do. Find out exactly what she was hiding, and use it to end her game before it destroyed everything. That night, sleep didn't come. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with fragments of Vanessa's phone call. Sale. Big payout. Fresh start. Fresh start with who? The way her voice softened on the phone, the hushed little laugh. It wasn't hard to guess. She had someone waiting on the other side of this deal. The more I thought about it, the more my stomach turned. Dad hadn't even been gone a month, and she was already plotting her escape. And she wasn't just running away, she was planning to sell off every memory I had left of him. By sunrise, I knew I couldn't waste another second. If she had 30 days mapped out, I had to work faster. Much faster. The first step was Dad's office. Vanessa rarely went in there, probably because it still smelled like him, that mix of coffee, paper, and faint cologne. To me, the scent was a comfort. To her, it was probably a reminder she'd rather erase. I closed the door quietly behind me and started searching. The desk drawers, the filing cabinet, the showboxes Dad always kept stacked neatly in the corner. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, only that I'd know it when I found it. And then I did. In the bottom drawer of his desk, tucked inside a faded envelope, was a copy of his will. My hands shook as I opened it, the paper crackling like it hadn't been touched in years. And there it was, in black and white. The house wasn't Vanessa's to sell. It was mine. I sank into Dad's old chair, staring at the words until they blurred. Relief washed over me, followed by something stronger, validation. Dad had trusted me. He had made sure I'd be taken care of. But if that was true, then how was Vanessa planning to sell the house? That question gnawed at me all morning. By noon, I had my answer. I checked the mail, something Vanessa usually intercepted before I could. Buried between utility bills and junk flyers was a letter addressed to Vanessa Miller. From a realtor. My chest tightened as I opened it. Inside was a sales packet, glossy photos of my childhood home, already listed on the market. I flipped through the pages in disbelief. She hadn't just planned to sell. She'd already started the process. That's when it hit me, she wasn't just manipulating me emotionally, she was committing outright fraud. And fraud leaves a trail. That evening, I called Mr. Hayes, my dad's longtime friend and lawyer. He picked up on the second ring, his warm, steady voice grounding me. "Kiddo, I'm so sorry about your dad. How are you holding up?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Not great. But I think Vanessa is trying to sell the house. The will says it's mine. I need help." There was a pause, then his voice hardened. "Bring me everything you've got. Tonight." For the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't dared to feel since Dad died. Hope. I drove to Mr. Hayes' office that same night, clutching the envelope with Dad's will and the realtor packet like they were oxygen. His office was quiet, dimly lit, with shelves stacked high with law books that smelled faintly of dust and leather. When I laid everything out on his desk, his expression darkened. He adjusted his glasses, reading the will twice just to be sure. Then he set it down and leaned back in his chair. "Your father was clear," he said firmly. "This house is yours. Vanessa has no legal right to sell it." I exhaled, my shoulders sagging with relief.
But he wasn't finished.
That said, he continued, if she's already listing it, she's committing fraud. We'll need solid evidence, paper trails, correspondence, financial records.
Something undeniable.
If we move fast, we can stop her and make sure she can't touch what's yours. The fire inside me burned hotter.
Vanessa thought I was powerless.
But now, I had a weapon, the truth.
The next morning, I started digging.
While Vanessa was out running errands, I slipped back into Dad's office with a clear goal. I pulled open drawers, checked file folders, and even rifled through the locked cabinet she had tried to claim was private. A paperclip and a steady hand were enough to pop it open.
Inside, I hit the jackpot. Bank statements, transaction records, emails printed out and highlighted.
All of them pointed to one thing. Vanessa was funneling money into a separate account, one she hadn't told anyone about. And mixed in with those records were emails from the realtor, confirming showings, setting up appraisal appointments, even thanking her for moving things along quickly. My hands trembled as I copied everything, stuffing it into a folder I planned to take straight to Mr. Hayes. But just as I was sliding the drawer shut, I heard it.
The front door. Opening. Closing. Hello. Vanessa's voice rang out, sharp and suspicious. My stomach dropped. My heart pounded so hard I thought she'd hear it from down the hall. I shoved the papers back into place, smoothed the desk, and grabbed a random magazine from the shelf, pretending to flip through it as if I'd been there all along. Seconds later, she appeared in the doorway, her eyes narrowing when she saw me sitting in Dad's chair. What are you doing in here? She asked, her voice like ice. I forced my face to stay calm.
Just remembering Dad. I miss him. For a long moment, she studied me. Her eyes flicked to the desk, then back to me.
Finally, she sighed.
Well, don't get too comfortable. This won't be your room for much longer. She turned on her heel and walked away, heels clicking against the hardwood. Only when I heard her bedroom door close did I let out the breath I'd been holding.
My shirt was damp with sweat. That had been way too close. But I had what I needed.
And in less than 24 hours, Vanessa's carefully spun web of lies was about to unravel. By the next morning, my folder was thick with evidence: Dad's will, the realtor's packet, Vanessa's hidden bank statements, and copies of her emails. Every page felt like a weapon, sharpened and ready.
Mr. Hayes called me early. I've drafted the necessary filings. If she tries to push forward, she'll hit a legal wall.
But if you want this resolved quickly, his voice lowered.
Confront her directly. Show her you're not afraid.
Sometimes the shock alone is enough to shut people down.
I knew he was right.
Vanessa thrived on intimidation.
The only way to beat her was to take that power away. So I waited.
She breezed into the kitchen around noon, sunglasses perched on her head, humming to herself as she scrolled through her phone. She looked like she was heading to brunch, not living in the aftermath of her husband's death.
Morning, she said absently, though her tone dripped with annoyance. Have you started packing yet?
Time's ticking.
I steadied my breath.
Actually, I've been busy with something else. Her eyes flicked up, sharp and suspicious.
Oh. I slid the folder onto the counter between us. The thud it made was louder than I expected.
Vanessa raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed, and set her phone down with exaggerated slowness.
What's this supposed to be? She asked. I didn't answer right away.
Instead, I opened the folder and spread the documents across the marble countertop. Dad's will on one side, the realtor's glossy packet on the other, bank statements and emails neatly lined up like pieces of a puzzle.
Her smirk faltered. Just slightly.
But enough. This, I said evenly, is proof.
Proof that this house isn't yours to sell.
Proof that Dad left it to me. Proof that you've been funneling money into secret accounts and planning to run off with someone else. Color drained from her face. You don't know what you're talking about, she snapped, though her voice wavered.
I leaned closer, meeting her eyes. I know everything. And so does Mr. Hayes. His filing papers as we speak.
The moment you try to touch this house again, it all becomes criminal.
Fraud.
Theft. Do you really want to explain that to a judge? For the first time since Dad's funeral, Vanessa didn't have a comeback ready. She opened her mouth, closed it again, then glanced down at the documents as if they might burn her fingers if she touched them.
You can't do this to me, she whispered. I almost laughed. To her?
She had tried to erase me, erase Dad, erase everything he built, And now she wanted sympathy?
I straightened up, my voice steady. Actually, I can.
And I am.
Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the counter. For once, she wasn't in control. And she knew it.
What she didn't know yet was that I wasn't just protecting the house. I was about to turn the tables completely and give her a deadline she would never forget. Vanessa stood frozen, her hand still clutching the counter like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her polished exterior, the smirk, the dismissive tone, the air of control, had finally cracked. "You think you can just waltz in here with a stack of papers and scare me?" she spat suddenly, her voice sharp, desperate.
"This house is mine. I was his wife.
You're just a spoiled brat clinging to a past that's over."
I let her words hang in the air, cold and venomous.
Then I calmly slid Dad's will across the counter until it stopped right in front of her.
"Read it," I said. Her eyes flicked down.
For a long, tense moment, the kitchen was silent except for the sound of her shallow breathing. Finally, she shoved the paper back, refusing to meet my gaze. "This doesn't change anything," she snapped, but her voice cracked on the last word. I leaned forward, my voice low but steady.
"It changes everything. You gave me 30 days.
But here's the truth, you have 24 hours. 24 hours to pack your things, call off the realtor, and disappear before I press charges."
Fraud. Misappropriation of assets. Attempted theft.
"If this goes to court, you lose everything."
Her eyes widened.
"You wouldn't."
"I would," I cut her off sharply.
"And Mr. Hayes is already prepared to move forward. The only choice you have left is how much of your dignity you want to keep. Leave quietly in the next 24 hours, and maybe people won't know just how low you sank. Stay, and I'll make sure everyone knows the truth, including your little boyfriend."
The word landed like a slap.
Her mouth fell open, and for the first time, I saw real panic flicker in her eyes.
She hadn't realized I knew about him.
"You've been lying to everyone, Vanessa," I continued, my voice rising now.
"To me. To Dad's memory. To the man waiting for you on the other side of this deal."
"But the lying ends here." Her hand trembled as she reached for her phone, as if she might call someone for backup. But then she stopped, staring at me like she was seeing me for the first time, not as a grieving kid she could push aside, but as someone who held all the power. "You'll regret this," she whispered, her voice hollow. I straightened, gathering the documents back into the folder. "No, Vanessa. The only one with regrets here is you.
24 hours.
That's all you've got." Then I turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving her standing in silence, her perfectly composed world finally crumbling around her. For the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't thought possible: control. And in 24 hours, she'd be gone. The next 24 hours were the longest and sweetest of my life. At first, Vanessa tried to act unfazed. She stomped around the house, muttering under her breath, slamming doors like a sulking teenager.
But the cracks were there. I caught her on the phone more than once, her voice frantic and hushed. By evening, the mask was gone.
I walked past her room and saw half-packed suitcases strewn across the bed, clothes tossed in a panic. Jewelry cases snapped shut, toiletries thrown into bags without care. She was unraveling, and every frantic movement was proof that the power had shifted. The smug, icy stepmother who once gave me 30 days was now racing against the clock I had set.
The final blow came the next morning.
A black car pulled into the driveway. Her lover. He stepped out, crisp suit, sunglasses, the kind of man who looked like he lived off other people's money. But when she rushed to greet him with bags in hand, I saw it happen.
He didn't help her. Didn't take her bags.
He just stood there, arms crossed, expression cold. "You told me you owned the place," he said flatly. "You lied."
I'll never forget the look on her face.
Her lips parted, but no words came. For the first time, Vanessa, the woman who always had a slick retort, was speechless. He shook his head, got back in his car, and drove off without another glance.
By noon, she was gone too.
She didn't look at me as she dragged her suitcases to a waiting taxi.
She didn't say goodbye. She just left.
And when the door closed behind her, the silence that filled the house wasn't empty. It was peaceful. I walked through every room slowly, my fingers brushing the walls, the furniture, the photograph she had tried to erase but never could.
This was my home. My father's home.
And now, it was safe. For the first time since Dad's death, I let myself breathe deeply.
I wasn't powerless anymore.
Justice had been served, not with rage or violence, but with truth, determination, and the kind of strength Dad had always believed I had.
Vanessa had given me 30 days. But I gave her 24 hours.
And it was the most satisfying revenge of my life. When I look back on those days now, I realize the most powerful part wasn't just winning the house or watching Vanessa crumble.
It was the lesson that came with it.
People like her thrive on intimidation.
They count on silence.
They expect you to fold under pressure, to accept scraps when you deserve the whole inheritance of love, respect, and justice. But here's what I learned: knowledge is power, and courage is the key to using it. Once I stopped letting her fear tactics control me, once I stood firmly on what was rightfully mine, her entire facade collapsed. My father used to tell me, the truth will always defend itself. You just have to stand behind it.
He was right.
So if you've ever felt powerless, like someone's trying to take away what's yours, or rewrite your story, remember this: you have more strength than you think. Sometimes, the most satisfying revenge isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's as simple as standing tall, watching the guilty pack their bags, and knowing you didn't just win, you kept your dignity intact.
And honestly,
that's the sweetest victory of all. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button. It helps more than you know. Subscribe for more powerful true stories of justice and revenge, and tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying payback you've ever witnessed?
I'd love to hear.
Because in the end, justice isn't just a story. It's a reminder: nobody gets away forever.